From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. once again sounded the alarm over China's new policy to detain alleged trespassers in the South China Sea, including those overlapping in the West Philippine Sea or WPS, saying that the move was an escalation of tensions in the disputed area. In a press briefing with members of the media on the sidelines of his state visit to Brunei on Wednesday, the president described China's threat as a worrisome development. The chief executive made the remarks when asked to react on China's 4-month fishing ban in the South China Sea, including parts of the WPS. President Marcos said China's self-imposed fishing ban is just an extension of their claim. In a media interview last May 19, Marcos called China's policy against perceived trespassers as unacceptable and vowed that the Philippines will take whatever measures to protect Filipinos. China reportedly empowered its own Coast Guard to detain for up to 60 days without trial foreign trespassers who will cross what it claims are its borders. This followed the successful conduct of the Atinto Coalition civilian convoy to Scarborough Shoal. The WPS is part of the vast South China Sea, which Beijing claims entirely as its own. However, in 2016, the Philippines won a landmark international arbitration case against China, invalidating its ambitious claim over South China Sea, a ruling that Beijing vehemently discarded. Despite China's continued aggression in the WPS that includes the use of water cannons, military-grade laser and barriers, the Philippines, President Marcos said, is exhausting all remedies to peacefully resolve the issue. He said there are some sort of a middle ground with China to ensure peace and stability in the area.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news stories, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday denied he was behind the move to replace Senator Juan Miguel Mig Zubiri as Senate President. This as Zubiri alluded to outside forces as behind his ouster as leader of the Senate, saying he lost his post for supposedly failing to follow instructions from the powers that be. Asked to comment on this during a press briefing with the Philippine media covering his state visit to Brunei, the president said he was not sure what Zubiri was referring to. Zubiri resigned as Senate President amid rumors of a coup against his leadership last May 20, 2024. A day later, Senator Chis Escudero was elected leader of the Senate. The chief executive admitted that Escudero informed him of his plan to take over the Senate leadership before the ouster was carried out. But President Marcos said he did not speak to any parties at end point because he was out of town, adding that he received the news that Escudero had assumed the Senate leadership when he returned to Manila from the said out-of-town trip. Asked if he still trusts Zubiri, the president responded affirmatively but insisted that he had nothing to do with the change in the Senate leadership.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said his engagement at the 21st edition of the International Institute for Strategic Studies or IISS Shangri-La Dialogue 2024 in Singapore is highly significant as it is a recognition of the challenges the Philippines is facing, including the situation in the West Philippine Sea. In a press briefing with members of the media on the sidelines of his state visit to Brunei on Wednesday, the president said being invited alone to speak in the event on May 31st is already highly significant itself. The chief executive further said it is also significant to the region as he intends to explain the position of the Philippines legally, geopolitically, and diplomatically.
They asked the Philippine president to come and speak on that very subject is significant in the sense that it is a recognition that there are challenges that are facing the Philippines specifically, and not only the Philippines, but this affects the region and it affects the world. So the what I will present in the Shangri-La Forum on the day after tomorrow is going to essentially try to explain the position of the Philippines.
And you just heard Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has conveyed to major players in Brunei Darussalam's energy sector the Philippines' interest in waste-to-energy projects as the government looks to develop other sources of energy and minimize the use of fossil fuels. In a high-level meeting in Bandar Seri Begawan, the president discussed with key players in Brunei's energy sector on Wednesday potential investments in the Philippine Renewable Energy or RE sector and enhancements on oil and gas collaborations. In a news release, the Presidential Communications Office or PCO said the chief executive acknowledged the need for appropriate infrastructure to harness the energy coming from landfills as well as the legal and regulatory challenges in pursuing the program. However, President Marcos noted that Philippine legislators are now coming around to the understanding that there actually are viable and clean solutions to the problem of waste disposal. According to the PCO, among those who met with the president were representatives from Brunei Shell Petroleum Company or BSP, Brunei LNG SDN BHD or BLNG, Total Energies in Brunei, Serikandi Oilfield Services SDN BHD, and Adinin Group of Companies. The discussion focused on exploring investment opportunities in the Philippines RE sector, sharing expertise and technological advancements in oil, gas, and renewable energy, and talks on sustainable practices and future energy projects according to the PCO. The oil-rich Brunei is actively exploring the potential for renewable energy-based connectivity by establishing interconnections with neighboring countries.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news stories, the Philippines House of Representatives will support the initiative of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. following the president's message to business leaders in Brunei Darussalam to seriously consider the Philippines as their prime investment destination, touting the country's brimming economic potential and improved regulatory processes. House Speaker Martin Romualdez made the statement following the Philippine Business Forum in Brunei on Wednesday. According to the House Speaker, the chief executive took advantage to boast the Philippines to businessmen and investors in Brunei. And in order to make this happen, Romualdez assured that Congress will fully support this initiative to let more foreign investment in the country that will result to the development and growth of the Philippine economy. In his message during the forum, the President mentioned the huge potential and benefit of having collaboration between the Philippines and Brunei in sectors of agribusiness, renewable energy, and the growth in the halal industry. President Marcos also laid out the reforms implemented by the government for the benefit of businessmen as well as the creation of the Maharlika Investment Fund. Romualdez said the House of Representatives stands ready to collaborate with the executive branch and private sector stakeholders to implement measures that support the President's vision. The House Speaker added that by enhancing the country's investment landscape, the government aims to drive economic progress, create jobs, and improve the quality of life for all Filipinos.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. arrived in Singapore on Wednesday afternoon where he is expected to grace the International Institute for Strategic Studies or IISS Shangri-La Dialogue. The President is coming off a 2-day state visit in Brunei Darussalam where he sealed agreements on various areas such as maritime cooperation, tourism, seafaring, and agriculture, and met with the Sultanate's business leaders. In an interview in Brunei, Marcos said his keynote address to the Shangri-La Dialogue, touted as Asia's premier defense and security gathering, will articulate the Philippines' position on defense and diplomacy and its commitment to a rules-based order and constructive multilateralism amid geopolitical tensions in the Indo-Pacific region. President Marcos will be the first Filipino president to address the forum, which is set on Friday evening. The chief executive explained that the West Philippine Sea, part of the vast South China Sea that is being claimed by China, is so important to global economy and its stakeholders are no longer limited to Southeast Asia, Asia, and Indo-Pacific. President Marcos said this makes the Philippines' position so important in the decision-making of any of the policymakers around the world. Among those expected to attend the Shangri-La Dialogue are multiple stakeholders in defense, ranging from heads of governments, heads of states, and defense ministers to industry players from around 40 countries, including China. Other world leaders who have delivered keynote addresses were Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in 2023, Thailand Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha in 2016, Malaysian Prime Minister Dato Sri Najib Tun Razak in 2011, Republic of Korea President Lee Myung-bak in 2010, and Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd in 2009. Aside from addressing the Defense Forum, Marcos will also have a series of high-level meetings with Singaporean officials for his 2-day working visit. The President's visit to Singapore is upon the invitation of former Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. Diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Singapore span for 55 years after the two nations formally established ties on May 16, 1969.
Dateline Malacañang.
To shoulder exercises between the Philippines and Singapore will remain under the leadership of newly installed Prime Minister Lawrence Wong. This was the statement of Philippine Ambassador to Singapore, Medardo Macaraig, when asked what the Philippine government expects with the new leadership. This is also related to the scheduled speaking engagement of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. at the International Institute for Strategic Studies or IISS Dialogue this Friday. Ambassador Macaraig said there will probably be management changes, but proof of the fact that there will be not much changes is that the cabinet of Prime Minister Wong is practically the same as the cabinet of former Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. According to the official, Singapore devotes time in planning, studying, and implementing their programs. This means they are focused on continuing the policies and programs that are already laid out. Because of this, policies and shoulder-to-shoulder exercises between the Philippines and Singapore that was already outlined under the previous leader will still continue.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Philippines Department of Migrant Workers or DMW on Wednesday reported that all 13 Filipino crew members and one Ukrainian seafarer on board a vessel hit by a missile attack by Houthi rebels in Yemen are safe. In an advisory, the DMW said it was informed by the shipping company's local manning agency or LMA that the vessel, a bulk carrier, was attacked by Houthi rebels as the ship was traversing the Yemeni coast near Hodeidah late Tuesday afternoon. The ship sustained some damage from 4 missiles launched by the rebels. The Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA have also been informed by the manning agency of the incident. The advisory said that the agency is communicating with the shipping and manning agencies monitoring the safety and condition of our Filipino seafarers. It added that the DMW is also contacting the crew members' families to provide any assistance they may need. The vessel is continuing its voyage to its next port of call.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, we would like to invite everyone to come and visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel at Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You will be able to hear and view our Filipino and English programs, including news updates here in the Philippines. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Steph Vicente. Good day and stay safe, everyone.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila. Dateline Malacañang.